I think we need to change things up here in Easthaven, like really change things. So by the end of this video, we'll have revamped much of the terrain, making it a lot more interesting, added a bunch of new developments and services, and I guess kinda ruined our economy, as we'll go from about 17 million in the bank to 2.5 million. Oh, and turn a massive profit into a deficit. So let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna jump straight into what is, I guess, technically a downgrade of Massachusetts Route 28 as it snakes its way through the western parts of Easthaven County. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I actually think most of this is just a part of the original vanilla archipelago map, so it was definitely due for a bit of a change. But the downgrade for us is more to accommodate the fact that I think the western portion of Easthaven County is going to be dominated by a mixture of low-density suburban sprawl, maybe some small resort towns or fishing towns, a bit of agriculture, and probably plenty of like marshland and nature. And the nature upgrade is going to be a major theme throughout this episode. We're going to do some pretty significant changes to the overall look, and it turns out awesome. If you ask me. This downgrade also did allow for quite a few additional trees between the wealthy suburbs and racetrack and airport, so I guess that kind of helps the comfort a little bit. Alright, so moving on to the quite significant terrain changes we're doing throughout this episode. Mind you, this also has a functional impact because I did insist on buying most of the tiles that I wanted to edit. It just makes it easier, but it also really makes our cash reserves take a nosedive, and the hourly income as well is cut really short due to the tile upkeep. I'm using the 529 tiles mod, and I have set the tile upkeep to 200%, which is the maximum, in an attempt to add some form of economic challenge and force us to kinda consider the decisions and investments we make. An attempt, at least. I didn't say it was always successful. Anyways, it should have become clear by watching the screen by now that I love archipelagos. I love the like intertwined lakes and rivers and small islands and all that stuff. I just love the added complexity of that type of terrain. Now I know I'm steering quite a bit away from the realism of the landscape you'll actually find in this southeastern part of Massachusetts. But it's an aspect I'm willing to sacrifice to make these changes. Now, of course, another functional aspect of all these terrain changes is that it is going to help add these geographical boundaries to future developments. We can always just do away with these by terraforming some more if we need more space. But something I've mentioned plenty of times before that really helps me develop things in this game is to have some geographical boundaries that just kind of helps set up the limitations of what you're building. Because if I'm just to develop a city on completely flat land, like imagine central Texas or something, it's just never gonna look finished, you know? Unless I spend a ton of time adding a bunch of agricultural land, it's just gonna be a city that is bounded by nothing. And at least for me, it can be kind of, you know, that can feel underwhelming, I guess. So adding all of these geographical features is just gonna help. And I think it's already something we've incorporated in like the narrative and context here in Easthaven County, like the way we positioned the airport. It's very obvious that when the city planners originally wanted to build this airport, maybe in the 50s or 60s, I don't know, they didn't have a ton of option. So, you know, there's gonna be compromises, and there is just about enough space on the other side of the strait, separating Fort John from Mersey to actually get the airport in place. And it was kind of the same with the historic motorsport park as well. There was a hilly area that wasn't used for all that many things, so with some powerful lobbying, they could build a racetrack. Oh, and getting back to the point about trying to create a bit of an economic challenge, as I'm buying these tiles, you can see just how much money we're spending, but it looks like we're making 100,000 profit an hour, but that's because the 529 tiles mod had actually reset the setting. So as soon as I corrected this from 100% tile upkeep, which is like the base vanilla setting, to 200%, you'll see my income dip to minus 50,000 an hour. So I actually think we do have a bit of an economic challenge ahead of us as we're finishing up all these terrain changes. Alright, so I just had to do a cool YouTuber before and after transition shot, of course. And in some places the changes are actually quite dramatic, but that was, I guess, sorely needed, because the parts of the map were looking a little stale and boring and hadn't really received any attention since I started this series. And this is a vanilla map made by the creators of the game, which you can see in places, but I think we can get pretty far if we just invest a little more time in making things more interesting. In other parts, the changes I've made are pretty subtle, and that pretty much correlates to the areas where I've already done some terraforming and terrain changing previously to kind of keep them up to speed. But generally, I'm really happy about these changes. There's nothing like a good terrain overhaul to kind of keep things fresh. Alright, so we've got another big task ahead of us that is also really going to change Easthaven. And I'm not just talking about getting out of this financial mess, oh my, yikes. No, I'm talking about the addition of a rural road network and some more agriculture. Because we've got a ton of land not currently used for anything, which is perfectly fine. Much of this is going to be reserved for suburban sprawl. But I would like a rural network to kind of just move through much of this area and a bit of agriculture to be squeezed in as well, so that it doesn't look as empty. And realistically, a lot of suburban sprawl is built on former farmland, so it makes a ton of sense to kind of have the farmland in place at first as well. So I think this is going to be really interesting. It's something we've only built very little of out here in Cape Autumn. I think this area is like a year old or something. But I think the techniques used are still gonna hold up today. So basically, I've created some very large farms by using Anarchy. They have plenty of employees as well, which is pretty nice. And then I've just kind of subdivided it by using some custom surfaces so that it looks like we've got a multitude of different types of agriculture here. I'm also gonna continue the general road hierarchy that we've used here in Cape Autumn for these new agricultural areas. So basically it's 2 or 3, I guess you could say, levels or tiers. So the top dog in this hierarchy is going to be the 2-way national road I've created with the road builder mod. So that's this bad boy. We've got a rural version as well, also with road builder, which as you can see is quite a bit more narrow. So it's a little more rural in nature. And then the final level, the lowest tier, is basically just gonna be the vanilla alley, because I think this road just works perfectly for like really small scale rural communities. Alright, so we're gonna start branching out these all new networks from West Point. We've got what's called Ivy Street, which pretty much cuts across the train tracks here. Such a nice custom station we built back then. Leading into downtown West Point, but it kind of ends a little abruptly alongside these low-density suburban streets, and that's gonna be changed. We're going to clear out all of this low-effort sprawl we built many moons ago, and then we're going to maybe just continue Ivy Street in the vanilla street configuration for I don't know how long, maybe up until this hill or something. Let's just start with that. I'm just gonna enable contour lines because it does get pretty hilly around these parts. But I think we'll manage 6% is just fine. So we'll grab our two-way national road and we're just gonna go for the continuous tool. We're gonna click with snapping on so that we can branch out from this street. And then I think we're gonna click once more, disable all snapping, and really try to adhere to the contour lines here, because this is a surprisingly hilly area. So it's going to enforce a bit of a swoopy, interesting design with quite a few elevation changes, which I think is going to be a ton of fun. Also, when we map out the actual farms, we're gonna have like some rolling hills moving across them, which is also gonna look pretty cool. But let's just get this initial main road kind of mapped throughout the entire island, really. So I think we have a pretty decent starting road layout here that we can work with. It's not quite complete, and as we branch out to the other islands, we might even have a cool low-hanging bridge here, maybe through some more marshy bits, which could be a lot of fun to create. But that's for the future. For now, I kind of want to test out some farmland here, because it's quite difficult terrain to have like really efficient farms on. So we're gonna make a bit of a test farm around this hill right here, where I imagine the like steepest part of the hill isn't actual agriculture, but the farm has to kind of snake its way around it. Yeah, it should be fairly interesting. So let's just grab a basic grain farm. I prefer to use these because they don't spawn sub-buildings. And the sub-buildings, if they spawn, they will flatten the terrain. So when adding farms to like tricky terrain, the grain farm really is like the safest bet. But let's just get that placed right here, and then we'll map out the actual farming fields. One of my favorite features of Cities 2 at least compared to its predecessor. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go pretty close to the residential area here, because this is gonna be an interesting patchwork of suburban sprawl and the farms that have kind of kept out, I guess, or have resisted selling their lots to suburban development. So we're gonna have the farm kind of stretch all around here, and then we've got a contour line here, this thick black one that I think we can kind of move around and just kind of align the farm to, and hopefully it's going to create a pretty consistent look. I'm gonna break that rule as we move around this side because we're getting really close to the actual farm asset. But otherwise, let's just see if we can get all the way around here and almost connect up. I don't know what happens if I actually connect this, so I'm just gonna keep a bit of distance. I don't want this to bug out in any way. Something like this, and then I guess we can just utilize a bunch of this space, and then instead of going all the way out to the road, we're gonna keep a bit of distance, maybe zone a few houses here, and we'll do something like this. We're probably gonna do just a tiny bit of terraforming because there's like a bit of an odd hill here around the farm, so we're going to select the exact level of the main asset, then right click and then just click once, maybe twice, just to kind of fill this out. And then we'll need to, of course, soften this. And we'll try to be careful so that it's very smooth and the actual machinery will be able to kind of make it up the hill here. But I think it will. They're pretty tough machines. All right, we're ready to add some custom surfaces now. Let's, for instance, grab these crop rows and fill out this bit right here. I'm not trying to be overly precise because there's going to be a ton of bushes and trees kind of outlining the edges of the farm and make it blend in a little nicer. Some of the bushes and trees are probably going to technically be located on the farm with Anarchy to, you know, really make it blend in. But I think this is a good start, and then we're going to turn this field here into something else. So let's grab another custom surface. Something that's maybe screams a little more. Maybe this red grass crop overlay could be fun. Alright, so the red field certainly looks dramatic. And I'm no expert on agriculture in general or agriculture in Massachusetts specifically. So I'm not even sure you'd have farms colored like this or what is actually being grown here. But it certainly looks interesting, and that's mainly what we're going for here. So the hillside here, I really just want to make that really like have a tiny forest vibe. So we're just gonna go for the pine, spruce, and oak, and go absolutely ham in spamming this. Oh, and the surroundings of the farm, of course. And I think even without moving in with Anarchy to have a bit of an overlap with some of the trees, this actually looks pretty cool. It's a little steep, but nothing extraordinary. Oh, wow, that is very steep. But it might just work with some technique, you know. Farmers are pretty clever to get around some challenges like this. We did leave a bit of space here where we could have a few houses, not like a specific suburban type of development, like something uniform by a single developer. I was more just thinking like just a couple of regular US themed houses would be a nice addition to this area here, just to kind of mix in and just add a bit of additional character to this area. It is going to be a fun mix, I think, of developments. And I think to further exemplify the mix I'm going for, we're going to dedicate parts of this plot here right across from the farm to a more classical suburban development. So this time around, we're going to grab not the suburban alley, because that has sidewalks. I am looking for something else entirely. Because I have a version of the... Oh, wait, it is actually the suburban alley. I don't want to grab the suburban 2-lane road because that has sidewalks. I want to grab the suburban alley, which is basically just a wide alley with parking on either side, and I really find it works really well for areas like this. So I'm just gonna try and create this so you guys can see what I mean. And it's, of course, just gonna be a pretty regular gridded setup. so that the zoning doesn't act out and we have plenty of zonable space. And then maybe we'll add a cul-de-sac right here by this corner lot, maybe a slightly bigger one, something like that. And I'm gonna utilize the reworked NA low density housing theme from PDX mods that we also used in a previous episode. It's basically just an improved version, I would say, of the regular vanilla US housing mod. Now I'm having some issues making the lane have the prioritized zoning here without having the key in place. So I think to get around this, I'm just gonna find like a small dirt path, like this gravel one, which I don't think would be completely out of the ordinary to see in an area like this. And we're just gonna kind of segment off zoning alongside the rural national road or whatever it was called. I also just want to make sure that my zoning is aligned to these that run across. So I'm just gonna upgrade and downgrade with a key here just to make sure that's actually the case. And then we're gonna do some zoning, and I think I might actually just zone the whole thing so that there's gonna be a decent density. Although it does, okay, it does look like a couple of houses are going to align alongside Cozy Lane. So to avoid that, and I don't know, I want to avoid that for whatever reason, I'm just gonna get rid of these, and then I'm gonna leave this unzoned so that I can kind of force the zoning to adhere to what I want. So we're gonna do something like this, and then as soon as all of this has developed on either side, we can add in this zoning. Because the cool thing about this is that, as you can see from the description, it only comes in 2x4, 3x4, and 4x5. So I don't have to be afraid of getting two 2x2s when I zone like this, which is something I would get if I were to use the vanilla zone, because it has a much greater variance in the amount of zones that you can actually get. Zoning sizes, I mean. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called variety and not variance, but you're getting used to the language barrier by now, I would assume, at least if you watch just one other video of mine. I am doing just a little terraforming, so I'm not really respecting the topography all that much, but it's mainly just to not have like super harsh hillsides right next to the suburban development. I know that wouldn't strictly be unrealistic, because you can imagine the developer just flattening the land to make room for the houses. But yeah, I just think it looks a little better if we just smoothen it out a little bit. And then obviously we're going to add quite a few trees to kind of cover the whole thing up. But it looks surprisingly nice without all the trees added. And taking an extra look at our financial situation, I think we're gonna go on a bit of a suburban development zoning spree out here now, because I really need more tax revenue. In fact, let's have a look at our actual taxes and maybe just raise them a little bit. I don't want to stifle demand, of course, but I need more cash. So let's go 12% for residential. We're gonna go 12% for commercial. The reason I have lodging at 0 is that I'm pretty confident there's like a bug, or there at least used to be. No, I think it's still here. Just look at the amount of money I'm making from this one tax. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I don't have a ton of hotels either, so I'm sure this is a bug. So my way of just kind of fixing that in terms of immersion has been to just reduce it to 0%. So that it's really not a factor in my city. And I actually think this is looking fairly well. Let's just bump maybe industrial 1% across the board. That actually brings us in the green. But we're still gonna zone some residential, create some family-friendly environments out here. So I think the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to expand the Central Hill District. Now this is important because West Point, just like most other cities here in Easthaven County, have local services. So many of the services are specifically only serving certain districts. So if I just grab the district tool, we'll get Central Hill expanded to kind of follow this road, I think, so that the new area is also included in Central Hill. And then I think we're gonna dedicate all of this to suburban developments and then have a few farms a bit further out. I think things are starting to really shape up quite nicely out here and really come together. We're getting close to the overall look I want to achieve. In terms of the financial situation, we are very much in the red again, and it's a bit unfortunate because we are getting -2 in the overall happiness due to high taxes. But I am going to increase taxes further on, especially on the business side of things. So hopefully office, a 2% bump and a 1% additional bump to industry will be all right. It shouldn't hurt our economy too much. And it's once again bringing us into the green. Now I need to be in the green because I also need to commit additional upgrades and public investments, because we're taking up more land now and we're building more housing. And we are just about the brink of not having enough elementary school capacity. And this is something I really want to try to prioritize, making sure we always have enough capacity, because I'm pretty sure we're gonna get some negative modifiers if we don't, in terms of like population growth and just the overall income and economy. So let's build a school up here by Central Hill. We've got a spot right here, which I think would be a decent fit. I want to utilize the small elementary school, this particular one we got with a free upgrade a long time ago, or free patch, sorry. Because it's super upgradable and the aesthetic is really, really generic. It can fit in anywhere and in any type of city. It has a base capacity of 400, which technically is enough, but I think if we just future-proof it a little bit, it has the added benefit of just making it a more interesting looking asset as well. I don't quite have enough space for the gymnasium, which is fine. I guess just adding a single extension wing right here, and then maybe getting a bit of surface parking, of course, fit it in, and I think that should be sufficient. That should be our school. Really don't want to commit to a lot of detailing or anything, just want to make the, allow the asset to kind of do the work. So we'll do something like this, and then we'll call it Central Hill Elementary. While investing in a school might seem like a well-educated decision, yeah, I'm so funny. The next investment is basically just for the cool factor with no functional improvement. Because the most recent free patch gave us a bunch of cool bridges, and since we have so many weird patchwork bridges here in Easthaven, I figured it was time for a few upgrades. And what better place to start than with this construction we did a long time ago, where the train and highway bridge is completely separated and has completely different aesthetics and just kind of look a little weird. So I think we're gonna pause the game here because we should have a really cool upgrade we can do here. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna delete the main span here, and then we're gonna move into highways, and we're gonna grab the 4-lane highway double train track double decked extra dosed bridge. I'm not saying that again. That's the one time. And then we're gonna drag this across. But of course, the really, really cool thing with this bridge is that it carries the double train tracks underneath. So this should turn out really cool, which I hope. It's probably, yeah, it's a lot of money and extra upkeep cost. But I mean, oh my goodness, this was all worth it. Let's see. We gotta be careful with how much train track we're getting rid of, though. So we got the tracks of the bridge underneath here, so I think we'll just get rid of these segments. I'm not going to remove this just yet in case this doesn't work. And then over here we'll need to clear out until maybe all the way up to this spot. Now I wonder if we can just complete this with one smooth continuous movement. Let's see, train, we'll grab the double train track, just a regular vanilla one, and then we're gonna go for a complex curve, and we're just gonna give this a go. So we're gonna start by branching out from the bridge tracks at 180, something like this, move down, and let's see, we'll click once and give this a go. Is that really gonna work in the first try? Looks like I'm gonna have to kind of lower just a few segments with move it, but that's pretty much it. And of course, we'll need to do the same procedure over here. Hopefully that is as easy. Just gonna find a good place to snap. It's actually a little hard to get the right angle. Something like this. Maybe move a bit further back. Let's have a look. It seems to work. We could do maybe a tiny bit of manipulation just to make it look a little better even. That is so cool. And we can now clean up the old train bridge, which is unfortunately gonna leave this train stranded in midair. I wonder if if it's gonna find traction underneath the bridge or if it's just gonna disappear, but we're gonna hit play and oh, wow, that is some pretty impressive work there. But oh man, this is what a cool addition. I don't care what this cost, this was all worth it. Moving on to a slightly more functional investment, as I can no longer ignore the need for an additional crematorium out here in Fort John. And I think we've got a decent location right here next to this this residential tower. This is just an empty space that I need to do something with, so if you've got ideas, let me know. I've already gotten plenty of ideas for this a small archipelago here, some really interesting ones as well, so I think we'll be developing this rather soon. But for this inner city area, I kind of want to mix up the density levels, and I think adding a crematorium, which is of course also very functional and something we actively need, is a pretty good step in the right direction. So we're gonna enable some Anarchy and see if I can kind of just squeeze it in here between the established roads, although I may actually redo some of them, of course. So I'm just gonna place it right here. Then I think I'm deleting this segment, and I'll be upgrading this to a regular vanilla 2-lane road, and we'll add a key on these two sides so that we can do a bit of terraforming and just see if we can kind of integrate this a little better with its surroundings, so that the hillsides aren't as dramatic. Oh yeah, I probably need the upgrades as well. So let's just get the extra garage added and these slightly morbid upgrades through the additional incinerator and the refrigerator expansion. Oh well, now that should send out all the troops so that we can start kind of tackling this notification issue. Now we're still looking to improve our financials a bit more before this episode's over, because it's looking a little grim currently, and this is with all the tax hikes we've already committed to. So we'll either have to increase our taxpayer base, build some specialized industries, and or reduce service funding. And I would like to not reduce service funding because that's a complex matter on its own, with all the with the complex layer of services and all the district assigned services we have here in Easthaven County. And I think the decent service coverage is something that generally drives the happiness and desirability of the county. So I think we're gonna start by seeing if we can accommodate some of the high density residential demand we have. Now, having a look at their city information, I see that one of the aspects driving this high density demand is also the cost of living. I assume this means that the cost of living is rather high, so some of this high density residential demand is not a demand for expensive condo towers, but a demand for low rent housing, which we know also fits into this umbrella. So I've been location hunting for a little bit, and we've got an empty plot of land right here between the national road circling this island, and then the small industrial area right south of the West Point downtown, which I think might be as good a location as any, really. So we'll need plenty of on-street parking, making me want to go for the perpendicular parking alley. And we're just going to continue on from the roundabout here, so as a continuation of this residential district. And I think we'll move to about here, and then we'll change this road type to the suburban alley with some regular on-street parking. And we'll just try to make the connection to the national road a little interesting. Maybe do something like this. All right, so we'll move into Find It and grab the low rent assets that we want to utilize. So moving into Find It, we're gonna filter for buildings, residential, and search for rent. This should present us with all the low rent options across all the themes and region packs. And I don't want anything tall out here. So we're gonna have to kind of be a little creative with the style we're using. I also think the lot size should be kind of defined or restricted rather, because we don't have a ton of space between the freight rail tracks here and the actual parking lot. So I'm actually going to utilize, I think, some of these Eastern European low-rent themed buildings. They're not the exact match, but they're not too far off, especially if we like grab one of the more boring color schemes and copy-paste that with the recolor mod. So I think we're going to start with some form of 4x3 on one side of the road and then maybe a 5x3 on the other side of the road. So let's just see what we can find. So we've got a level 4. Oh, this is a 5x3. So we're looking for something like this. And then we'll just add them in a slightly interesting configuration. So maybe they'll be aligned 2x2, something like this. So we'll align 2 of these and then we'll align 2 more. And we're just going to move through and do this for the entire stretch. Very nice. And then for the other side of the road, I wanted to grab a 5x3 version. And we're just gonna maybe align this a little differently. These are just gonna be situated like this to kind of maximize the views out here. And they're just gonna be in one row at this configuration. I don't mind the red roofed color scheme. I think that looks pretty cozy, but I'm just gonna make it a little more like subdued, a little older looking, something like this. And I think I'm gonna try and copy paste the color scheme of this building to all the others and see how that looks. So if we're just renaming this Sunnyside Hilltop, then we could name these the Sunnyside Estates. 1,200 households. Wow. Okay, so we're hitting play. This should really satisfy some of this demand and give a healthy population bump as well. We're gonna add some trees to the Sunnyside Estates, but not overdo the detailing at all. This time I think we're opting for a slightly different set of trees than used throughout much of the county. Hopefully it's gonna make it look a little more interesting, basically. But yeah, no detail really. I think this is just an area that it's gonna look the best from afar, but it does look really good from afar because it kind of helps break up the monotony of, you know, suburban or residential areas by just making quick, small areas like this that are more, you know, single developer built. In this case, a low rent housing unit, but it could be medium density or anything in between as well. And I think that turned out pretty well. So we've still got plenty of medium density residential demand. Let's have a look and see what kind of drives that. Bit of everything really. So let's just see if we can satisfy some of this. We've got a couple of options. We could start by expanding this apartment complex on the southern end of Queen's Cape because we've got a bit of available space here. Alternatively, we could fill out the Pine Hill district, which is completely empty currently, but there is a decent road connection as the highway here makes its way underneath a bunch of infrastructure. I think we might start out here in Queen's Cape just to get a general idea of, you know, how much demand this actually is. So let's just grab the regular alley and kind of follow the hillside here, enabling some contour lines, of course, and some anarchy, because I am addicted to anarchy. I cannot build without it. I am carried by it, some would probably argue. And 4% elevation, really not too bad. So let's just add this segment. And maybe a cul-de-sac with a cute little tree by the very end of it. And I wanna add some parking, of course. Now I've done a cool thing here by utilizing the keys to reduce the parking a bit, and I think we're gonna do the same out here. So I'm just gonna show you guys what I mean. I'm gonna add an additional node because I don't want parking alongside this small segment as it moves right next to these buildings. Then we're gonna grab the perpendicular parking alley that we've also just used on Sunnyside, and then we're just gonna make an upgrade here, just like this. But we're gonna add a key to one side, and you'll be able to see just what I want. We now have just parking on one side and the key on the other, which I think is pretty fitting. It's quite a hilly area. Now we just have to settle for the type of buildings to use. We've got a pretty decent amount of options in terms of medium density, but I want to try out some of this US Southwest style because there's a lot of different, you know, colors and levels kind of going on here in terms of like the height of the buildings and whatnot. So I think we could combine this into something fun. We also have these corner lots, which is of course perfect for the final corner here. So I am going to see if I can just kind of mix and match this and make it have a bit of an interesting look. I'm not quite sure about this one. I think I'm gonna keep it, and then if it starts annoying me, I might remove it. I think for now I'm okay with this look. It's certainly a little different than the other types of architecture we're seeing here in Queenscape, but I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that this is a more recent new development. So we're keeping it for now at least, and it did satisfy all the medium density residential demand we had. As this new development has pretty much been filled out now, we're starting to see a bit of a rebound in low and medium density residential demand. So I've located a plot of land right here between Garnet Crossing and Central Hill in West Point, where I think we could have another apartment complex. I'm gonna add a bit of parking through this one-way parking road, so we're just gonna cut through like this, and then maybe just a slightly curved segment to connect up to the residential road. And then I'm gonna grab these 2x4 EU residential medium buildings, which we should be able to align in maybe 3 of these next to each other, and then slightly misaligned because they can kind of function as like a wall-to-wall development. I'm just gonna test it at first, and then we'll see. I think this should work fairly well, actually. We'll maybe just do something like this, I guess. Would look all right, and more interesting than not having them at a bit of an odd angle. So I'm just gonna fill this space out. And then grab one of the color schemes and just kind of paste that throughout. I don't want the blue, but I actually like this combination of gray and red, so we're just gonna utilize that one. Once again, super simple project, and once again, no detailing as we zoom out. I think it adds, you know, the diversity and like the urban landscape. I'm just saying a bunch of things now. I hope you get what I'm trying to convey here, but these do add 12 households a piece, so about 100 households here, which is pretty nice. And then to wrap up this episode, I would like to place one of these signature residential buildings, and there should be like a UK city apartments, so a really classical apartment tower. And I actually think I located the spot just a few minutes ago. We've got a bit of space here, which is just housing 2 level 5 houses that have now been eminent domained the heck out of here. And then we'll need to upgrade or rather downgrade this to an expressway road, so we get some zoning alongside it. But then I think we should have just a space for this guy. And I think it's a fun location for a tower like this, and it's kind of gonna be like a bit of a new trademark for West Point, really. Might as well just call it the West Point Tower. Not sure how pleasant the place it is, but West Point Tower, definitely. Maybe it's kind of like a notorious place or something, or maybe it actually is really nice. Who knows? You've actually got some pretty nice views from up here. So even though the building might not look like much, it might actually be a pretty desirable place. At least with the current cost of living situation and cost of housing situation in Easthaven County. This place might fool you. But I think this was a pretty nice addition. 136 new households, which is nice as well since demand has now completely rebounded. But yeah, with this beautiful landmark added to Easthaven's skyline, this is going to be a wrap of the episode because I actually have to go pack some stuff now. I'm leaving for a couple of weeks of summer vacation. So it's gonna be a little while before the next video pops up in your feed. I recommend enabling notifications if you don't want to miss out when the time comes. I think I would be a bad YouTuber if I didn't sneak that in there. But anyways, I hope you guys agreed with all the changes we've made today. I think the map refresh is that was certainly needed, and I'm hopeful it's gonna inspire even more creativity and cool builds in the future. And of course, this change has drastically impacted our financial situation, which is also hopefully going to result in some tough decisions moving forward. I'm hopeful. Of course, I hope it goes without saying that we didn't quite get to finish the projects we started today. I do plan to map out rural road networks for these large empty land areas and then fit in plenty of agriculture, so we have more of an interesting backdrop to do future developments. For now though, I'm gonna shoot some final cinematics, wish you all a wonderful summer vacation or holiday, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.